Hey guys, Xenofang here, back on another Division video. Today we're going to be doing the next portion of the tier list, and this time it's going to be for the PVE portion. Like I said last time whenever I made this video, it is based off of my preferences during the PTS as well as the way the game is right now in 1.8, and pretty much I'm not expecting any changes to occur whenever these gear sets are provided into the game, you know. For instance, what is called Firecrest, Tactician's Authority, Alpha Bridge, and Hunter's Faith have all not been added into the game yet. We're still waiting for those to be added within the next global event, but they are not getting any changes from the global event, or from the, from the PTS to the live game. There's been very little changes, and it really hasn't done anything to really skewer my opinion on these certain things. But on that note, this is going to be based around the team type aspect of PvE. I am going to have a separate video for the PvP side of things for solo, and a separate video for the solo PvE setup. Now, for me, when it comes down to it, there's only 5 tier lists. I have like a top 5 list, you know, for all these things. 1 is the best, 5 is the worst, and of course we're going to go ahead and start off with tier 1 for this list, and that's going to include Striker, Defense, Sentry's Call, and Predator's Mark. These are my top 1 best builds you can use in PvE, and the reason for that is because, for the most part, like, Striker has some bonuses. I'm going to go ahead and start off Striker. Striker, in general, provides a lot of survivability, you know. This, to me, is a really great PvE set just for what it does. It is a super tank build where you can play really aggressive, and I honestly feel like Striker it's honestly got its position I thought it was going to be within the division whenever it first was announced. You know, the guy that's up front, taking damage, soaking bullets, and he's in there playing aggressive. He's the striker. He's the guy that goes in there and goes head first, you know. And it really feels like that position is being fulfilled with the new striker set. I feel like it's a very good PvE set because of the enemy armor damage it provides. All the other sets don't provide major damage bonuses to PvE, but Striker is that main set out there that does. It's got enemy armor damage, which in turn is specifically specified for PvE more so than it is for PvP. Yes, enemy armor damage works on PvP as well, it just only increases damage percentages by a very, very low margin. But this, when it comes to PvE, enemy armor damage is direct damage to the enemy's armor. And if you're fighting against what is called orange NPCs, you know, the yellow NPCs, or like elites, or sometimes the heroic or legendary NPCs, this build will go through them like it's nothing. It'll destroy their armor, it'll kill them very, very quick. On that note, I would like to move on to the second build, which is Defense. Now, for me, D3 FNC is a really, really strong team supportive build in PvP and in PvE. I feel like it's just a great build you can have within your team in general, just for the support values it provides, and as well as the aggro values it provides in PvE. In PvE, it can hold NPCs and keep it on your position, allowing you to hold the aggro and take more damage, allowing your other teammates to focus those NPCs down. In addition to that, if you take a certain amount of damage to your shield, it also provides a huge armor buff to your whole teammates, which in turn is very, very good if you're planning on going for resistant runs and you're trying to make it so longer rounds, or you're trying to do legendary difficulty missions. This build in general is one of my favorite builds for playing solo as well, which I'll go ahead and express later on when we get to the solo build, but I'd like to say that now just because it is so good for PvE. It is that good. It's one of the best. Now, for me, when it comes down to team setup, Sentry's Call is going to be another really top tier build. The reason for this more than anything is because of its new 6 set, and the fact that you land what is called 3 marks on a target, and then you continue to land marks on top of that. It'll apply a mark effect to all the other targets, and they'll start getting marks, and they'll continue to gradually increase. And once you've got that target to 6 marks, you and your allies will end up doing like an additional 45 damage to those targets, and you get 200% additional headshot damage towards that target with 6 stacks. This is great if you're trying to take out a boss in a very short period of time, or if you're just trying to clear out waves very, very quickly. It's great for PVE. It's very good for legendary difficulty missions. It's really, really good for resistance. You need to have one of this guy on your team when you're doing one of those specific objectives if you're trying to go through really, really quick. Great for speed runs. It's super, super easy to use, and I think it's just really, really good for PvE. As addition to that, like I said, it's specified for PvE. This is the best sniper set for PvE as well, and that's why I'm going to say it is the top tier for, PvE in general. Next one is Predator's Mark. Now, the thing with me is that a lot of people think the Predator's Mark is balanced for PvE. I would have to say I completely disagree. When it only takes 10 shots with an Urban MDR to kill a heavily armored boss, it's just a little bit too potent for me. It's just a little bit too potent for me. All it takes is 10 shots and you've killed any NPC in the game. It really comes down to that. Even in legendary difficulty missions, you'll just shred through NPCs. And if you're running Shrapnel, it's very easy to spread the bleed to other NPCs, clearing out them very, very quick. So in that sense, Predator's Mark is one of those builds that allows you to kind of just target everything and keep on applying bleeds. It's very easy. You could just target one NPC, apply a bleed, move on to the next one, apply another bleed, and you just continue to move around. As addition to that, with Predator's Mark, you're stacked into stamina, in turn making you very, very tanky the same way as Striker. And in a way, like Striker and Predator's Mark are very similar in this aspect, in the sense that they're very tanky and able to output still a lot of damage. But I still feel like Predator's Mark, when it comes to a DPS standpoint, is better than Striker's, even though Striker has enemy armor damage. It just provides so much bleed damage. And like I said, you're rocking it with Shrapnel, you can apply that bleed effect to loads of NPCs, and you're going to be killing NPCs even faster. So in that sense, it's really good for PvE because of the survivability and the damage aspect that it has, even though it is a tank set, which is really, really weird for me. I just don't feel like I don't think that a fully stacked out stamina build should have the best DPS talent in the game. I just don't feel like that's I just don't feel like it's right. I feel like that should go to maybe one of the sniper sets, because they're supposed to have the highest DPS output in the game, Moving on to Tier 2. Now for me, Tier 2 is kind of a mismatch build list for me. It's kind of really awkward, especially because if you guys watched my PvP video, a lot of the lower tier builds are actually going to jump to top tier. So in Tier 2 we have Tacticians of 480, Firecrest, Reclaimer, and Lone Star. Now for me, it's kind of weird for me to put Tacticians of 480 at the top of the list, but there's one main reason alone that I have Tacticians at the very, very top. And that's just for the fact that it's just got it's really easy to get stacks off of NPCs, and it's really easy to be that supportive extra healer in the team. I know that Reclaimer and Final Measure are really, really good people to have on your team for support portions, for me, I would consider Final Measure top in Tier 2 as well, for PvE, but it's just so specified to specific missions. And we'll go ahead and get into Final Measure here in a bit, because that'll be in the next tier. But for me, Tacticians is really, really good to have on your team to apply a really beefy pulse to those NPCs and provide a lot of damage output for your team. As addition to that, your Tacticians of 480 player can run a smart cover and also provide a lot of damage resistant buffs to your teammates for longevity runs, if you're planning on doing resistance and trying to get up to this higher waves, or if you're just trying to do legendary missions and you want to make it a little bit easy on yourselves. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on to Firecrest. Firecrest is the next one within the tier list for me. The reason why I consider Firecrest Tier 2 for PvE is just for the amount of fire this build provides. It's got great crowd control. The 6 set is absolutely amazing. It gives your guns pretty much fire bullets, so you can have a 5% chance to apply a fire effect, on fire effect. You have your flame turret that lights things on fire. You kill a target that's on fire, they explode and apply more fire. And of course, if you're using the wildfire talent, you're spreading even more fire. Everything is going to be on fire. And the good thing about it is that means that a lot of your teammates that are sitting there fighting and stuff like that can focus the guys that are shooting at you instead of the guys that aren't shooting at you. Great crowd control build. Very, very good for PvE. And honestly, even though it's kind of a skill power build, you can provide a DPS role with that build, and actually it'll be really, really powerful. It's got a lot of damage output that it can provide to the team. I think it's a very, very good set for PvE, and I think it's amazing. Now, again, Reclaimer is going to be in the top second. It's got to be the top builds, guys. Reclaimer is really good. It provides that support type role that it's really good for a team. It heals people and keeps them alive if you are planning on going for those hard mode missions like Legendary or Resistance, trying to get those really top tier, like highest rounds you could possibly need. You're going to have a Reclaimer. You're not going to be able to go through these things easy peasy without a Reclaimer. Reclaimer is the best support build in the game. It provides so much healing aspects to your team, and when it comes down to Resistance, you're going to be going through ammo like no tomorrow, so having a Reclaimer on your team allows you to not waste as much bullets as you would if you were playing by yourself. I think it's just really good for your team. In addition to that, I'm going to move on to Lone Star. Lone Star, again, really good PvE set. It's not very good for PvP. I think it's still like mid-tier for me, just because it's too spec'd into one thing and not like other things. Now, for me, like I said, I think this is a really good PvE set. Why? Because honestly, when it comes down to it, PvE, you don't really have to worry about certain things that you would have to do in PvP, so you're more free to spec into certain things that you wouldn't do so in PvP. This in turn allows like Lone Star to be a very good like DPS output set for your team, like probably the best DPS set you can have within your squad if you're trying to kill NPCs. It's just kind of like shrouded out by Strikers and Predator's Mark just because they have survivability. That's the only reason why it wouldn't be top tier. It just provides a lot of damage output, and again, if you're running a light machine gun, it's really easy to make NPCs get in cover and stay in cover and hold those guys down. Even though light machines have the damage out of cover type talent, it's very good to suppress targets and make sure that they don't shoot back at you. In addition to that, Lone Star, just again, like I said, it's got a lot of damage output value for it. It's just got so much damage, burst damage, really good for killing bosses. I mean, like, for instance, if you look at Clear Sky and the best runs that have been done on Clear Sky, the people that have done that in the fastest period of time has been with Lone Star and it being built a different specific way. A way you wouldn't build it for PvP, but something that works incredibly well for PvE. So, yes, Lone Star for me is top tier. It's really good for PvE. It's very good. So, let's move on to Tier 3. Tier 3 is going to include Alpha Bridge, Nomad, and Final Measure for PvE. Now, the reason why I have these specific things in this specific role is because they're very specified to certain roles. For instance, like I said, Final Measure would be top tier if it wasn't for it just being that build that relies on you receiving grenades to apply buffs to your teammates. And not every single, like, for instance, Resistance, I wouldn't run a Final Measure in Resistance because not every single wave is going to have grenaders. So only certain portions of the mission you're going to provide a lot of grenade damage bonuses to your teammates or stat bonuses or anything like that. But if you take Final Measure into Falcon Lost or Clear Skies, it's a different story. It's definitely top tier. It'll provide amazing benefits to your teammates. It's just, if you don't have those NPCs throwing grenades at you, you're not going to get buffs. And relying on something that doesn't happen that often is not something you want necessarily within a team if you're trying to go for longevity. You know, you want other bonuses, want other benefits that are going to provide more things to your team, and that's the only reason why I would say Final Measure is mid-tier, because it's very specified to one specific role and one specific role alone. It's very good for it's very good for any mission that includes a lot of grenaders like Falcon Lost or Clear Skies, but otherwise, no, it wouldn't be so much. Alpha Bridge, I would consider it higher, but the thing is, now with its 6 set, and people are going to be running that 6 set, the thing is, you lose ult capability. You lose the capability of providing ults to your teammates and receiving ults, in turn making it so you're like a solo player in a sense. You're really kind of only benefiting yourself, but it's a really good DPS survivability set, something that can provide a lot of longevity to your team, and you can stay alive and not really worry about dying all the time. So, in that sense, I consider like mid-tier, and that's kind of the other reason why I consider Nomad mid-tier, because it really doesn't provide any benefits to your team besides damage output, but like I said, I feel like other sets do it better in this patch. So, in that sense, Nomad and Alpha Bridge are kind of just mid-tier. You know, they're not exactly the best, but they're not exactly towards the bottom. They just don't provide any additional benefits for PvE, and really don't need those guys in your team for that type of supportive role. They just don't provide anything, you know. Like I said, if it came to PvE, and I wanted a DPS player on my team, I would really want Strikers, Predator's Mark, or Lone Star. I don't really want a Alpha Bridge or Nomad. They don't provide enough damage output compared to those other sets, right? Or have the survivability to boot. Now we're gonna move on to tier 4, like starting to get a little worse, the really bottom tier. Now these two sets would be very bottom, but the thing is that there's one specific set that does take the bottom of the list for PVE, and we're gonna get into that here in a sec. The two that are like tier 4 are Deadeye and Hunter's Faith. Honestly, I would consider these guys very bottom tier with the Eller build, but it still provides damage output to your team. It's just they don't have the survivability to last for very long periods of time. If they stay in a very back corner of the map and just take off enemies, it's very good to have an extra Deadeye player maybe with you whenever you have a Sentry's Call player for for like legendary modes. But when it comes to something like Resistance, you're really not going to want one of these guys on your team. You're probably going to want to take the ladder and go with Sentry's Call. Hunter's Faith is just a makeshift strikers build for snipers, and it really doesn't provide enough damage output with all the niche abilities it has to do. You have to like shoot targets without missing at all, and even though it's NPCs and it's really easy to land certain shots on them, if you're playing against like for instance legendary difficulty NPCs, they sometimes move around a lot and it's very hard to hit them consistently. I just don't feel like having to gain those stacks and losing the stacks via 1 or 2 shots is really reliable when you can just provide more benefits to your team running Sentry's Call. And that's the only reason why I consider it bottom tier. It just doesn't provide enough damage output or team support type buffs such as Sentry's Call. Sentry's Call is a DPS set, but the thing about it is it provides damage benefits to your team, so in that sense it is the top tier sniper build. Hunter's Faith, Deadeye will not take the cake on this. They're just not as powerful as Sentry's is. It's just that's how it is. So they're bottom tier for me. I just don't feel like it's a necessary build you need in your team. On that, though, we're gonna go to tier 5. What is the lowest set in the game for PVE? It is Banshee. Why? Because Banshee is very specified for the Dark Zone. It's a very specified build. You could argue that it's still providing benefits to your teammates just because it's giving you that 10% additional damage to enemies out of cover, or that 15 in total if you're running the 6 set. But only 15% additional damage compared to the other sets. Why would you consider that better? Like I said, Sentry's Call gives you 10% additional headshot damage, and then you get another 10 for running the what is it called? 6 set. Plus you get like 40% additional damage if you land 6 headshots, plus 100% additional 200% headshot damage. Like, that's a lot of stat values compared to 15% additional damage. That's a lot more. Look at Lone Star. Again, provides more damage output. So in that sense, Banshee is not a good PvE set. It's very much made for PvP. It only provides PvP benefits. It doesn't provide PvE benefits, so therefore it is absolutely the worst set for PvE. It is. It's just, I'm sorry for you guys. It just does not provide any benefits. I would consider Deadeye and Hunter's Faith better than Banshee, just because it still has talents that work in PvE. But Banshee just doesn't. It doesn't work at all in PvE. So on that note, that's it, guys. That is my tier list for PvE. The next video that I'm going to be posting up will be the solo PvP guide for what I would consider to be top tier for gear sets, other gear sets that we have for that specific role, and then after that it will be the solo PvE. I might end up posting a couple more videos in between for other games, such as maybe Call of Duty, Player Unknown Battleground. I really enjoying that game. It's really awesome. I've got some really good wins. And I still got some Fortnite gameplay that I want to post, but I'm not like playing it anymore. I'm kind of playing PUBG instead. So I'm going to post maybe those ones sooner instead of later, because I'm going to continue to play Player Unknown Battleground and continue to get more gameplay for that. But on that note, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.